Hello everybody and welcome to Haynes Solutions webinar on report assembly. As an agenda today, we're going to do a quick introduction to Haynes. We're then going to look at the issues and pains around report assembly. Demonstration, looking at the best practice report assembly. That's using an example of a monthly board pack. Then we're going to summarise and then we'll open for questions at the end. So a quick overview of Haynes Solutions. So we specialise in financial performance management or FPM solutions around the Office of Finance. Got over 50 man-years experience in business analytics, and we're a leading IBM Cognos support providing partner, which means that we can support the applications that we implement at customers. And we're very much IBM's go-to partner for delivery to the Office of Finance, using the financial experience of our consultants. Some of our customers, well, we work over a wide range of industries and sizes of organisation. So we have customers with applications that range from perhaps 5 user systems up to 200 or 300 user systems. So a very wide range of companies and industries and sectors. So let's look at this whole issue around reporting. The number of reports that are produced in an organisation has grown over the years, and this is a very interesting study by the Hackett Group in 2012. So the abundance of applications. So we're seeing roughly 44 financial applications per $1 billion in revenue. In terms of the labour intensity of this process, 91 finance staff per $1 billion in revenue. And on the right hand side there, abundance of reports. So we're getting roughly 1,500 reports per $1 billion in revenue. And that's a huge number of reports that organisations are producing nowadays. And 82% of finance managers cited the primary business application for generating management reports as spreadsheets, which is not surprising to most of us, I think. But as we all know, the value of any report is not in the numbers, but in the narrative that supports it. Something that explains what's going on with those numbers. So reporting goes far beyond charts and graphs. And as we know, decisions are no longer made based on numbers alone. So our executives and managers really want to get into the detail of what is driving those numbers, the narrative around those, to help them make critical business decisions. So many finance executives say that the narrative portions of financial reports consume a substantial amount of their staff and management time. So we're looking at 41% of managers think that their staff spend a substantial amount of time on creating these reports, and managers think that their own time is substantial. In terms of 31% think that that's substantial in producing reports utilising management time. So let's have a typical report assembly production line. So we typically got an ERP system feeding into some kind of data repository, be that TM1, controller, Hyperion, or data warehouse. Then got some kind of feed into Excel. So most companies are still using Excel for this purpose, and we're getting some kind of auto refresh against an underlying data source. A lot of companies are then inserting comments and commentary within this workbook, either using comments or using text in cells. Some companies are creating accompanying Word documents that go alongside Excel. And we're then finding that these are then being combined together and often output into Adobe, or in some cases even manual rekeying and put into PowerPoint, and this is then delivered to a user in the organisation. If you add into this the complexity of multiple contributors into these documents, and also version control over these documents, you can see you've got an extremely complex report assembly production line. So what are the pains around this report assembly production line? Well, the first one really is around time to complete, and it's really because those manual processes to bring together data and narrative take so long. We also need to get information into a format for distribution, so that's really getting it into a PDF or a PowerPoint. And of course, as the data changes in the underlying systems, then each of those documents needs to be updated. Checking and reconciling data also takes a lot of time to complete. So we're having the situation where highly paid qualified staff are doing low value time consuming tasks and checks. So what this is meaning is that there's little or no time to perform analysis and provide insight for decision makers. It's a problem that we've been suffering within finance for a number of years. The other pain we've got really is around the level of control. So in terms of this document that we're producing, there's a lot of rekeying of information, and that's an error-prone activity. We can't really control and compare report versions. We're using Excel and Word, which are great for personal productivity but not great for collaboration. And there's no real control mechanism for this. So multi-collaborators find it difficult to work in this environment. And there's no visibility over report progress. So what's happening here is that we're having to really compromise on the volume and the speed of report production. So we're often finding that these reports can take 2 or 3 days, and we're having to shorten them because we just can't deal with the volume. The third pain that we really experience is confidence in the process. Because we're rekeying data, people can make mistakes. There's little or no security or control around the process, and audit trail or transparency are non-existent. And we're really unable to completely incorporate business review and analysis of financial reports. So we find it very difficult to get narrative and numbers together. And therefore we often find that confidence in the document can easily be lost if someone finds that there are problems with numbers. So what we're going to try to show you today is a demonstration of a best practice report assembly process using IBM's Cognos disclosure management. And in the example we're going to be using is a monthly board pack. So I'm just going to hand over to Katie, who will give you a demonstration of the product.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the final report output, and I'm going to be showing you an overview of how this report has been built within Cognos Disclosure Management for my October management pack. Here we can see a table of contents and then a financial summary at the top, which is referencing financial values, followed by an Excel graph and an Excel table. Then at the end I have a series of Excel graphs linked into a Word table. Now I'm going to go into the CDM application itself, and I want to locate this report to work on it. By selecting this report's icon at the top, this drills down into a series of report subgroups customised into the types of reports that I produce. I want to work on my management pack, so I drill down further into this folder, and here are my August and September packs, which are filed and saved, and the October pack, which I'm currently working on. When I open this report, it takes me into an interface where I can view and continue to work on it. Displayed in the window is a user object summary, which lists all the different report objects contained within my report. The term report object is used to define a PowerPoint, Excel, Word, PDF file. And along the top here are columns to identify the different properties defined for an object and the progress of the object itself. On the left here is the content of the report. This is displayed and built in a logical structure with the report objects that contain the narrative and data placed in the order that they are required in the final output. Next to each object is a small icon which indicates which stage it is currently at in its workflow. Each object has a workflow, and I can go and view this workflow as an example. And a workflow is made up of workflow states which can be customised. For example, beginning at not started, and then this can move to in progress, formatted, and so on. Users and groups are assigned to each state, and it is defined as editable or locked. Users will then work on the object when it's in the state they've been assigned to, and then when they've finished they move it along to the next state. Customers like the functionality of this workflow as it allows them to view the progress of different parts of a report, and it also tracks who is responsible at each stage. Now I want to view the front page, and here we can see a number of references which are called variables defined by a ##d. One for company, I've got one for current month and current year. These are common words used throughout the report which regularly changed, and are linked to an Excel spreadsheet which lists out the variable name and value. In here we can see current month with a value of October, and if I go back into the front page we can see the reference to this variable. We also have one for current year and one for company. When the value is changed here, wherever this variable name is referenced, this will be the value that is displayed in the output. This means that someone doesn't have to go through and manually change and check all these repeated values. Now I want to look at an Excel object that contains P&L data. On the first tab is my table display in the format that I want it to appear in the report. This will automatically convert into Word when I generate the report in the specified location. The data values here are linked using Excel formula to the database tab, which is linked to my data source and is pulling through values for the parameters defined here. These numbers cannot be changed from within this tab, they will only change when the numbers change in the data source. There are a number of data sources that I can define, and this is set up in the administration section. We can see here a number of connections, and if I open up the functionality here, these are the different types I have access to, so OLAP, relational, external Excel files, and the HFM data source. From here I can go back into my report, and I want to look at a Word document that contains my summary narrative. At the top there is a comment to indicate the report object needs to be checked out before it can be edited. This means that only one user can check out an object and be working on it at any one time. I can then change the view to bring up the Word ribbon, which has all the normal Word functionality available that I can use to continue editing the object. The highlighted text here are variables for data values linked back to the P&L data on the Excel spreadsheet. Whenever the data changes in here, this will automatically pull through into the narrative in my Word document. There is also functionality to create rules that cross-check values that are being pulled from different sections in the data source but should be the same value. For example, I have a retained profit line in my balance sheet which should be the same value as the profit line in my P&L. Therefore, by comparing one to the other, I want to see a value of 0. And when I generate my report, I'll get a validation report listing the outcome of each of my rules. I now want to generate the report, so I can select entire report. There are a number of different outputs available: PowerPoint, PDF, desktop publishing. There's also the functionality to save a snapshot, so this is version 2. This will take a copy of the report at this moment in time to allow me to compare this to a previously saved report. This is now processed, and I can open the document up outside of CDM. I'll automatically get my validation report for my rules, and this will give me a status of pass or fail. I've also got a track of who ran the validation report and at what time. Now I can go into my Word document, can see those variables that were ##Ds before have now been resolved with the value of my company and my month and year. And the data values which are highlighted here for these purposes for the demo to show that this is data values from my data source. I also have my Excel graph which is pulling through from the EBITDA, and back in my Word document I can scroll down and see that immediately underneath this is my formatted Excel table that has been converted into Word, and at the bottom I have a series of graphs that have been built in Excel and linked into a table in Word using hyperlinks. I want to compare this report to a previous version. Back in CDM I use the View Snapshots functionality. This will list all of the versions that I've saved, and I can compare any two versions. So if I select version 1 and version 2 and use the compare icon, this opens up into Word and will display my compared document, the original document and the revised document, and I can see that I've changed the wording here and I've inserted a company logo. So come back out of here and back into CDM. I now want to see the exact same report, but this time in PowerPoint output. So these are PowerPoint objects and exactly the same summary narrative. I've got my graphs linked back to my Excel and my data sources, and I'm using the same variables for my month and company. When I generate, I select the PowerPoint option. This will now generate and will make the report available in PowerPoint for me to run as a slideshow. And when I open it, I get the validation report for my rules. And then I open my PowerPoint and we can see my October and my year have come through, and I can scroll down and see my summary with my highlighted data values from my data source, and then the same Excel table formatted followed by the Excel graphs. And just like the Word document, when the values change in the Excel and that variables sheet, they'll automatically change in the output. And there are a number of different audit reports that can be run to track progress. If I go into this option here, I can view by report or report object. This gives me a large amount of data as to the date and the time, which report was worked on by which user and the user name. And I can also see which objects they worked on and what changes they made. So customers really like this functionality as it allows them to track their whole reports and its progress. So now I've finished with my October and I want to roll it forward, ready to start working on my November pack. In the administration section, I locate the October report and I use the roll forward function. Give the report a name, November. I can change the period start and end dates, and also set all the report objects back to their default status in the workflow. It then asks me to change the value for my data source, so now I want to access 2014-11 data rather than 2014-10 in my data source. This is now finished and the new report is generating. I can then refresh, locate and open up this report to start working on it. I can change the narrative, change the variable values in that first Excel sheet. My data is already rolled forward, so if I go into my P&L and select the database sheet, you can see this is automatically changed now to 2014-11, and these values here will then change and link back through to my Excel and any Word narrative. Thank you very much. I'm now going to pass you back to Mark.
So thanks very much, Katie, for that demonstration. So let's just summarise what we've looked at today. So before the demonstration we looked at a typical report assembly production line, and we concluded from that there are a lot of problems with that. It's very labour intensive and takes a lot of time to produce. So we then showed you a best practice report assembly production line. So we've still got the data coming out of the ERP, and we've got connections to that data, and we've got an output capability. We've got PDF, we've got PowerPoint, we've got output capability to Excel, we've got Word, and we've got XBRL or iXBRL for regulatory reporting. So what we've shown you is an application that really brings together those familiar Excel and Word products within a controlled environment, and allowing all of those components to dynamically refresh against underlying data connections such as TM1 controller, Hyperion and data warehouses, or any SQL DBC database. We've shown how we can then bring collaboration and workflow into the piece, and also complete control over versioning within inside the application. And CDM then also provides an audit trail of all changes that are made within those documents. So what are the issues we've addressed? So, less time consumed. So we're now automating those processes to bring together data and narrative, cutting out those manual processes of rekeying and putting data into spreadsheets. We've increased the number of distribution methods, so we're now including iXBRL, output into Excel, output into Word. And most importantly, all of those data changes in the underlying ERP and underlying data sources are dynamically refreshing as the report generates. With that checking capability within the application, we've also no need to check and reconcile data, because those reconcile checks are showing up as we generate the report. So we're beginning to move our highly paid qualified staff to more high value tasks. And what this is allowing us to do is to perform analysis and provide insight for decision makers. So we're increasing the time available for that high level analysis and quality checking. We've also increased the amount of control in that process. We're not rekeying information anymore, and we can easily control and compare reporting versions. We also have a control mechanism for multi-collaborators, and we've got complete visibility over report progress, seeing where each page within that report is within its completion process. So what comes from this is there's no need to compromise on volume of the report anymore. We can easily produce them, and the speed of that production can be increased. We also got more confidence in the process. As we're not rekeying numbers, there's less risk of error, and we've got security, control, audit trail and transparency over the whole process. And we can now completely incorporate business review and analysis within financial reports. So we've now got a high level of confidence in the document and reduced risk. So where can this be used? Well, CDM can and has been used in many different places. So we showed you today management and board packs. We've also got customers who've got financial statements, the full glossies and presentations to the city are being produced using CDM. KPI reporting is another good example, carbon disclosure reporting, and down at the bottom there we've got three that are shown in red. So we've got co-rep and fin-rep, and that's really utilising the tagging capability of CDM, which allows us to take data into XBRL or iXBRL. So CoRep, FinRep are very hot on the agenda at the moment. Solvency 2 also. And for those who report into the US Stock Exchange, we have the capability of producing EDGAR reporting. In fact, anywhere where you've got words and narrative together, perfect uses for CDM, Cognos Disclosure Management. Just a quick word on pricing before we finish. There is some special pricing available at this moment in time for those companies with a current investment in the current IBM Cognos toolset. So that includes Controller, TM1 and BI. And CDM fits perfectly with all three of these applications. There's also express level pricing for under 25 users within the CDM application. And for those of you who in the past may have looked at Clarity FSR, which is the predecessor to IBM Cognos CDM, then you'll find that the current pricing is significantly less than previously quoted pricing that you may have talked to IBM around 2 years ago. So some great incentives there to buy CDM. So thank you very much everyone for watching our webinar today, and we'll now take questions and answers.